correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm Steve, and I'm going to talk some RPGs here in a minute. But before we get into the meat of this week's show, I want to let you know about another podcast here on the D20 Radio Network. This week, that's going to be I Should Roll, which is a really cool podcast, pretty new to our network. It's an actual play podcast set in the Mass Effect universe. And it's kind of this custom homebrewed system that's a mix of a bunch of different things. I've listened to a few episodes of it. Unfortunately, I'm one of those weird freaks that has lived under a rock and has never played a minute of Mass Effect. So they could be getting all the Mass Effect stuff completely wrong, and I wouldn't know. But given the fact they use a bunch of, like, even on their characters, they use, like, voice modulation stuff, I'm guessing they're trying to mimic, characters from the thing. It seems really, really, really cool. So, yeah, go check out I Should Roll. It's on all the podcatchers. They also have their audio up on YouTube like we do now. Just check them out. Really, really cool. And they claim to be Commander Shepard's favorite podcast on the extranet. So, take that for whatever you think it's worth, but go check them out. You can also check out the D20 Radio Network Discord through the link in our show notes or show description. Find a bunch of other cool podcasts there. So if you need more gaming stuff to listen to, check out everything that I just talked about. All right, so for those of you out in podcast land, on our show 2 weeks ago, if you'll remember, Steve brought up for Game of the Week a game, or actually a Kickstarter called Raptor Ruckus. And, well, because of podcast time tomfoolery, it is only now about 4 days after Steve mentioned that, but you won't hear this till 2 weeks after earliest you could have heard it. But tonight, I am joined by Zac Goins, who is the creator of said Raptor Ruckus. And I just want to say, before we get into all this seems really, really cool and kind of special to me because, unbeknownst to most of our listeners, we actually attempted to start recording a Jurassic Park RPG actual play many, many moons ago, and it never got past. We did a cool session 0 and a session 1, and then scheduling fell apart like things do when you're dealing with, RPG stuff. But it's always kind of amazed me, and granted now, this isn't officially, it doesn't have, it's not Spielbergized or whatever, but it's clearly the inspiration. And I think I'm surprised that there hasn't been more, because you tell me, but like Jurassic Park 3 is an RPG session.
Yeah, it is. For sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, not gonna argue. I'm surprised too. Like, I think that there's definitely like certain genres that have kind of like missed the merry-go-round a few times, missed getting on a few times with RPGs,
Mm-hmm.
and this is one of them. I think you could have said Mad Max was another that up until recently we didn't have like something that was like super Mad Maxian. We had post-apocalyptic, but we didn't have like Cars Plus, right?
Well, Atomic Highways has been out for a while, hasn't it?
Atomic Highways is a good one.
Almost nobody knows it.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not like, I think, there's a ton now, and there's more
Right.
coming. So we're seeing that. But like, yeah, for a long time, it was like, where is all the Mad Max stuff? Like, why isn't, like, that should be big? And now we're seeing that. And I'm like, Jurassic Park, I think, is hopefully going to be the same way, where we get some cool dino stuff in the next coming years.
Well, I think too, though, like, and you list in the listing, some of your inspiration, Jurassic Park, Alien, Turok, Jaws, Congo, etc. And then one of my absolute favorite, I don't want to call it a not so great movie, but I don't think it was ever intended to be as good as it is, was Lake Placid.
Oh yeah.
I love that film.
Yeah. That's one of my co-creators. He was like, it's like, what really inspired you? And he's like, Lake Placid and Anaconda. And I'm like, all right, like, great. That's awesome. Yeah.
But like
He also put in Ghost in the Darkness, which is also like I'm like, yeah, that's a great one too that gets
Well, but I
forgotten.
think the theme that kind of runs through a lot of these is, yeah, we may be all tech and advanced, but nature is still a harsh mistress.
Yes, yes, very much so. Spot on. Like there's it's very we very quickly go to the bottom of the food chain as soon as we're put outside of our homes and bunkers. So
Hmm. So yeah, how did well for those who haven't looked at the Kickstarter, and there'll be a link in the show notes and all that stuff. Give us a quick, overview of what your vision of this is.
yeah, so I think the short tagline it's survival horror by way of dinosaur circa 1993, right? So it's Jurassic Park with the serial numbers filed off. But it's also a D20 game, rules light. It uses the Mork-Borg engine kind of as its framework, but we took it in a completely different direction than what a lot of the other Borgs do. It got a huge overhaul, really focusing in on that idea of survival horror, about just trying to stay alive, about stealth scenes and chase scenes and, vehicle chase scenes and supply resource management. Like these things are what we're really interested in. And yeah, you can find a gun and yeah, you can load bullets at it and shoot a dino, but that's often more trouble than it's worth. And in many cases is just a quick trip to yeah, to ending up in something's nest. Um, but yeah, I mean that I think that's the basic premise is like if you like Jurassic Park, that's 100% what we're going for. And if you want something that's less pulpy in the sense of like we're not shooting for Indiana Jones or something like that where everybody's guns blazing and you're gonna survive and it's just a high action thing. We're angling more towards like probably if you start out with a group of five, a few of you are gonna die before the end, especially if you're trying to shoot everything that moves. So, yeah, I think that's probably a good summation.
Okay. Well, and I think the Borg engine, again, now my experience with it is I've played Cyborg a time or two. I've played Mork-Borg a few times. I own both of those. I also have Vastgrim,
Yeah.
which I played once, I think, maybe a couple other ones. The way I explain, and Cyborg is probably the one I love the most because I'm a cyberpunk junkie. But to me, the ethos of Borg is you're probably going to die, but if you do, try and make it spectacular.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I think that still carries through, though we did make a few tweaks to make it slightly less likely that you're going to die. Like as an example, in any other Borg, if you go below zero, like if you're at 3 hit points and you take 5 damage, you're dead. There's
Mhm.
no, and in ours, you always stop at zero and you roll out on a broken table, and then if you take more damage, you die. So it's just that like little things like that that still keep the lethality, keep the brutal aspect of everything, but at the end of the day, you're playing protagonists in the Jurassic Park experience, and you can even play a kid in this game, and so we want that ability to, you know, not have you replacing your character every session if you're careful, if everything goes your way, there's a chance, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing, and like so that's the other thing as I was kind of wondering is this designed as more of a kind of one shot game, or is it set up to kind of support a longer form campaign format as well?
Definitely longer form campaign is supported. We actually are launching the Kickstarter with a campaign book alongside the core book. And not to get too salesy, but like that's one of the things that we talked about from the beginning is I want to show how Borgs can be done in a campaign format
Hmm.
and what does that look like. And as opposed to saying, oh, it can be done, here's some tools to do it. I thought this time around I want to like actually give you the blueprint
Hmm.
and, in this blueprint, this we call it fragmentation is the name of this campaign. But in this one, it's about escaping the island when everything falls apart. The pitch I give when we're in playtest is like, imagine that you are in Jurassic Park and you are other visitors to the park or other workers at the park, but you're not important enough to get on the helicopter with Hammond and get
Hmm.
out of Dodge. And so you're left behind. How do you find a way off? And we put together the campaign book is 8 different scenarios that couple together to tell a 8 to 10 session story, but also guidance for expanding that out even further.
Hmm. Oh, that's cool. almost like did you ever actually watch the animated series? I think it's on Netflix called Camp Cretaceous.
Yeah, a little bit. Not, I haven't watched it all the way through, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't either, but I watched a bit of it. Actually, it was pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, for if you like the Jurassic Park franchise.
Arguably better than some of the other films that we have
Well,
gotten
I
in many ways. So,
see. I'm weird in that I actually like Jurassic Park 3, and a lot of people don't seem to.
sure. Same.
Um, but Lost World, I didn't like the first time I saw it, and I haven't liked it much better subsequently.
Wow. Wow. Okay, that's
But like I
interesting.
read the book first, and the book to me, the 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 book Lost World felt like, oh, here, Michael, write another book so we can make another movie.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's some really cool stuff in the book. I think that the book is better than the movie that we got of it.
It's
And I,
also,
I like both of them, but yeah,
in fairness, been, I don't know, a lot of years since I read the book.
sure, sure, sure.
um,
Uh, Very fair.
but yeah, no, and I think like, but I feel like this kind of, I don't know if you want to call it primal survival horror is in a
Mhm.
way, like you said, an underrepresented genre. I mean, like if you look, oh, there's stats for dinosaurs in 5e. If you're fifth level, they're just like, okay, yeah, I walk up and poke it.
Yep,
We're done.
yep.
Like maybe not immediately, but no, dinosaurs should be big and scary, especially a T-Rex.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's there's dinosaurs in many, many, many RPGs and but they don't feel like Jurassic Park or they don't give you that sense of awe and terror. And even in like I mean, I've got Shadow Dark sitting on my desk right now and Shadow Dark has a whole page devoted to dinosaurs in it, in the bestiary. And I think it's probably the least used page, if I was to guess, in the bestiary across the board, right? So even when they're there, they're rarely given a lot of time in the spotlight because they kind of are their own thing, right? Um, and so hopefully we're doing something that gives them that moment in their own space to really be the focal point in a way that they don't get to be in a lot of other
Hmm.
uh, system settings.
So can I ask just, and I have a guess as to why, but why the Borg engine as opposed to anything else?
Yeah. I didn't initially think that that was the direction I wanted to go. Like that was not my first choice. And I love Borg, so it wasn't that. It was just like, no, I want something that like has this like idea of panic and suspense and, cool maneuvers that aren't just shooting or attacking something. And like Borg doesn't have any of that. So maybe we need something else. And I mucked around with several other things and I kept coming back to like none of these actually work, and I'm gonna have to strip down a lot to get to what I want. Um, and Borg is really easy to strip down. And then I think the thing that really sealed it for me was I really wanted something that wasn't a mechanism for succeeding in an encounter that wasn't you killed the dinosaur.
Hmm.
That was big for me. Like, if every time you face a T-Rex or raptor, it's like, well, if we don't kill it, we're gonna die. Then we've fundamentally missed the point. And so I was looking for that mechanic that was interesting, and I kept in the back of my mind saying, there's got to be something in one of these that really is the answer. It's just called something different right now. And what I realized was that Borg has a morale system, which is really simple. Every creature has a morale score, and you roll 2d6 at certain points. And if you roll above that score, then the creature flees or surrenders. It's really easy. And what I realized was right now in a Borg, the maximum that you could have is like an 11 in a morale stat as a creature, as a enemy. But if you rip that blocker off and let us dial up past 11, and you call it tenacity instead of morale, you're starting to get somewhere. Like the idea that like maybe a velociraptor has a tenacity of 16 to start off with or 18. Okay, well, that means if you roll 2d6 initially, like there's no way that it runs. There's no way that it, is defeated. But what if tenacity, if hit points are burned down by damage, maybe tenacity is burned down by maneuvers, outmaneuvering the creature, by successfully succeeding on hide checks, by successfully evading, by doing stunts, by, getting in a car and taking off. All of these things burn down that tenacity score of that creature to the point where when you start rolling that 2d6, it can give up on the chase. It loses interest for whatever reason. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we hit upon that, we're like, oh, this works really, really well. It's super easy to pick up and understand in a play test in just a one shot or whatever. And it doesn't fundamentally ask us to rebuild the system. It's just taking mechanics that are already core to the game and reinterpreting them and kind of building them out a little bit further, which really made me happy.
Well, I think my guess was going to be one, Borg is quite simple and splashy, and it also, like we talked about before, in so many other games, the dinos aren't big fearsome things, and in
Mhm.
board games, almost everything is big and fearsome.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Amongst
everything's big
other
and
reasons, but that
yeah.
and it's just fast and splashy, which contributes to that survival horror chase feel that you said you were going for.
Yeah. Yeah, it also has splashy is a good word for it, right? Like that's the other thing that sold me was like the board community loves poppy colors, crazy design, intense monsters, right? Which is exactly what we want over here. We want those like we want the book to have those moments of horror and those gross out or intense visuals sometimes. But we also want, the bright green, the bright yellow, the bright red. We want it to feel like, the if I mean, I was a kid in the early '90s, so I want to grab the that Jurassic Park merchandise that had all those primary colors in it to be injected into the book as well. And a lot of that wouldn't fit great alongside other projects in particular systems. But the Borg space really has embraced that idea of like, let's get wild in certain areas. Let's kind of blow the color out a little bit and let's embrace the funkiness at times.
Mhm. So now, just to ask, the one complaint, and I get it, but that I've heard leveled specifically at Mork-Borg is,
Mhm.
man, I can't read it. All the fonts just make my brain go weird.
Yep.
And for as many weird mental things as I have, that isn't one of them. I happen to think, like in the case of Cyborg, that actually adds to the game.
Sure.
But like, have you kind of followed in that tradition, or have you gone to a more of a uniform font for the actual text of the game?
In the core book and like in our core line, it's gonna be more organized.
Mhm,
The art has more color and pop and craziness, but it's going to feel more like your, like a Free League Year Zero book or something when you crack it open, where it's pretty consistent headers, pretty consistent fonts all the way through. There's definitely some variety, and we do a little bit of things with like the page formats to where it's not just like you get two columns on every page for 144 pages and you're done. Like there's definitely some mix it up. Let's do some weird things, let's vary off the design. But by and large, we want this to be a book that's digested, partly because I prefer my books that way, even though I love the Borg aesthetic too. Like, I also love a book that I can quickly digest and use as a resource and reference.
mhm,
Um, but then the other part of it is, I really think that, and we've seen this to be true already in these past few days of the Kickstarter being live, is that this Raptor Ruckus and emulating Jurassic Park is something that is going to appeal to more than just the Mork-Borg community.
mhm,
It's something that I think has a wider appeal, which I want to help facilitate those people, and I would like to imagine that Raptor could be a gateway drug of sorts, um, to have people learn a Borg system with an approachable design and presentation, and then say, "Oh, I know how to play this now. I don't feel lost when I step into, Cyborg," which is also great. And this can be the easy stepping stone to get to that.
mhm. Oh, that's cool. I appreciate that approach because, like, in a sense, what do you want to say? Morkborg, and to their credit, they are very, very plain about saying this, was made for metalheads.
Yeah. And it's made as an art
Cyborg.
book, right? Yeah.
Right. Cyborg was the Mork-Borg version of Cyberpunk. So you were already like, they weren't trying to sell it to a new gamer. They wanted to go, hey, you want to take a Mork-Borg approach to playing Cyberpunk? Here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Where
exactly right.
like you're viewing it, and not that there's anything wrong with that approach, but like you said, because it's such a ubiquitous thing for people of a lot of different ages at this point, right? Like you said, you were a kid. I was 16 or 17 when 17,
Uh-huh.
I think, when Jurassic Park came out.
Mm-hmm.
So like most of my adult life will say the Jurassic Park franchise has been a cultural reference.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a sense, I mean, even now, what there's is the brand new movie just out or coming out, or I don't know, I haven't kept
Rebirth's
track.
out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like it's a thing. My 5-year-old nephew loves Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I took my 6-year-old nephew to see Rebirth when the new one that just came out. I mean, he loves it, right? Like it's and that's the thing, right? I'm not there's definitely a place for a book that is very particular to a specific audience, and that's okay, right? Like
Hmm.
that should happen. But I don't want the 12-year-old who pulls Raptor off the shelf to be like, "Oh, I don't understand what's going on here."
Hmm.
I want them to be like, or like we've had like even already in the Kickstarter chat, we've had like a mom that said she's excited because she's a fan and her kids are a fan and she's excited to run it or for them. And we've had a dad that reached out and said, "Hey, my kids don't like the complexity of D&D, but he's tried to try to get a gauge." So I know that like there's already this sense of like this is a family game where to an extent where parents are going to be saying, "I want to try to run this for my kids." And at that point, we need something that is truly accessible. And hopefully that's what we've put together.
So actually, I think the last episode I recorded, we were talking with the organizer for the PGX convention, which happens here locally. It's going on the beginning of October, and he's become a big Borg fan, and he was sharing a story about he was actually testing out. He had just started recording his home sessions, so he didn't have to take notes. And so
Mm,
he was actually just testing out his miking system. So he got his 14-year-old, sat them down at the table, said, "Okay, we're going to play Mork-Borg." And they're like, "Well, but I don't have a character." She's like, "Don't worry about it. You just got to roll 12 or better, and we'll make the rest up."
yeah,
And he said they told him that they had such a great time because the pressure, and we talked a little bit about this then too, was that sometimes not having all the stuff on your character sheet is actually freeing because you just do the thing instead of looking and going, "What am I good at?"
yeah, yeah, exactly right. My daughter, I took her. She was 9 at the time this spring. I took her to a show here locally, and I was running a play test there. And she had signed up to do some D&D, but then she decided she didn't know but anybody at the table that she'd rather come play a game with Dad. So she played Raptor with myself and a few gentlemen that had signed up. And you know, she's smart and she can play in a D&D game and understand that character sheet. But I could tell right away like she played the kid class, the smelly kid class, and she understood what was on her sheet, the few items that she had, and the simplified language of what can your character do and all that, and like immediately bought in, and immediately because it's in a modern setting, right? Like that's another thing that's approachable for kids is that they don't have to know all the intricacies of a sci-fi system or know how the all the varieties of how spells work. They can just say, "Do I have a flashlight? Do I have gum in my pocket?" Like that sort of easy, easy to transcribe. And yeah, I mean that makes me happy. That makes me happy that they're. I love seeing kids in the hobby in general, but it's even more happy when I see that something that I'm making is something that they can connect with directly.
Yeah, no, that's it. Playing with kids is actually really fun because sometimes they do stuff that I don't think us adult gamers will because we don't think it's good enough.
Sure.
Like the one I point to a lot is it was a podcast I was listening to. It was an actual play podcast, and what it was someone was running Pathfinder for his middle school daughter and a bunch of her friends. And the moment that stuck in my head was they were combat had started, but they were on the edge of a swamp, and the bad thing was out in the swamp. And the one player was like, "Well, I don't want to go out there. I'll get my boots dirty." And
That's
I
awesome.
went, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And yet, if you and me and any of our regular gaming buddies are at a table, that thought would have never crossed our mind.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's wild. That's interesting. Yeah, you never know. You never know. Hmm. Yeah, just new RPG players in general, like kids or just new people who have never rolled dice before. It's always a fascination to see like how do they interpret a game where you can do anything.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm always tickled to see what they come up with because it's typically something really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's fun, especially when you put them in less conventional games. Like I at another con I went to this year, Gamer Nation Con, that the network, our podcast network, puts on in Texas. I made a game session inspired by Finding Bigfoot,
Oh, nice.
but I had 6 players. 3 of them were playing a Bigfoot family group, and the other 3 were playing the research team.
Hmm.
And so it was, do what you think a Bigfoot would do what you think a researcher would do. And it really, as a GM, it was more, okay, well, maybe we should roll this because of that. That was about all I had to do. They told the story.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And I had
I
a
love that.
9-year-old, 7-year-old at the table.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was a lot of fun.
I have there's this crazy story that happened last year, the year before, at Gamehole Con, which is a show in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was running Octoon Cthulhu, which is a 2D20 game from Modiphius. It's
Hmm.
World War II with the Cthulhian mythos injected in, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I sat down and prepping it up, and the first 2 guys that sat down were exactly who you'd expect, like experienced gamers. One of them had never played a 2D20 system before, and he was all gung ho about that. The other one is like, yeah, I know 2D20, and I'm like a World War II nut, so like I'm here for it, right? And so getting everything set up, and then the other 4 people that showed up were these 4 ladies who were like between, I'll say, 25 and 50,
Hmm.
were dressed in either business attire, 2 of them, or like collegiate sweatshirts.
Hmm.
So clearly, at this is a gaming show. They are the only people wearing either one of those 2 types of apparel, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they're sitting down to play Octoon Cthulhu, which is not a game that you would expect a group of 4 ladies to sign up for. So I tried to be a little bit sly about it, but I said, hey, before we start, this isn't a game that everybody always knows how to play. So I'm just going to do a quick pulse check. Who's played Octoon Cthulhu before? The one guy. I said, who's played 2D20 before? The one guy. Who's played an RPG before? The 2 guys. The 4 ladies never played. I said, okay, well, this is interesting. I said, what, ladies, if you don't mind me asking, like, I'm curious why you showed up here. Are you like World War II? Is that of interest to you? Don't care at all. They're like, I said, oh, Cthulhu. Like, do you like Eldritch horror, that sort of stuff? Don't know what that means. They had never rolled dice before. They had no idea who Cthulhu was. They didn't care about World War II. And like, okay, why are you here? And they're like, oh, a a coworker friend of ours, another gal, talked about playing D&D, and we told her at some point in the office, like, oh, we might play that one time with you, see what it's all about. The next day, she showed up to their work and said, I booked us an Airbnb for the weekend. We're going to go to Gamehole Con. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Thanks for showing up. I'm like, where's your friend? And they're like, oh, she's playing a different game. She signed us up for this one. So we ended up playing a 4-hour game. I gave them an opportunity at the hour mark. We took a break, and I'm like, they can disappear if they want to and never come back to this table, and it's all good. But they came back. They had a blast. They played 4 hours. We took that system and kind of broke it down to something way more digestible than and the adventure too. Like, I mean, we still played the whole adventure, but like simplified some of the concepts around it. But I thought it was so much fun, and it was so cool to see like them getting into like you're doing like military requisitions at the beginning of the mission. You have a certain amount of points to like requisition supplies, and like they're trying to spend those points. Like, how are we going to get there? Oh, should we rent camels or horses, or should we buy a truck? Like, they're trying to think. Like, anyhow, it's just very, very, very cool to see them like all the lights turn on and what an RPG was, and then afterwards to hear them excitedly talk about, was this their favorite thing in the world? Maybe not all of them, but it was something that they all got and understood and saw why people love it. And anyhow, just you don't get experiences like that every day, but they're special.
No, but that's really cool. And yeah, I hear you. That is such a fun thing when you kind of get to like that look when they realize, "Oh wait, you mean if I can imagine it, I can try and do it?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, not to like jump around or whatever, but
No, you're
before
good.
we go down a zillion tangents, do you want to talk about the campaign itself a little bit, just so people know? Like, as we record, you've been live for what now? About a week,
A couple days,
a
really.
couple
That's it.
days, and you're already
Yeah.
1,000% funded. Or am I
Yeah.
doing math wrong?
That's probably about right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so we launched with the goal of making the hardcover core book a setting book that's also hardcover that we talked about, and then a bunch of accessories. And we kind of went big on all that, which typically, I've managed about 70 different Kickstarters in the past, and I typically would say for a first line or for anything like, don't go like this, don't go crazy because you got to make all of those things, and every new SKU is another potential pain point for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are a couple things like the fact my day job is I work as the marketing director for Limithron. We make Pirate Board, and I help a lot with the production there. So I'm cozy with that. And we also are using Brian as our publisher for this. So we have Brian's expertise when it comes to manufacturing and that side of things. So we had a lot of things going for us. So we're doing the core book, we're doing the hardcover campaign book, we're doing a packet of set piece scenarios, which are each designed by a different creator, and they have really unique flavor and pitches that some of them you could put them into one of the campaigns and they fit well, but some of them are like really crazy out there. So it's like, hey, take this engine, take these ideas, and go in your own direction with it for just like a one shot experience. And so like one of them is Eldritch Horror by way of dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some like pseudoscience weirdness also in there, and there's Rakshasa is about a weird hybridization experiment that's gone wrong. So we go like to the extreme edges in those. Then we got all the regular stuff like character sheet pads. We got a GM screen. We got some minis. And then I think the other cool two things that I would point out as like unique things about our project is we have a deck of cards called a hacking deck. It's not just playing cards. I mean, you could use playing cards as a stand-in to some extent, but it's more about like there's a hacking mini game in the book that's optional that kind of takes it from just a simple die roll to bypass a computer security system or something like that and creates like a really fun, engaging element around it that's like puzzles in D&D. And that was all designed by Frank Tedeschi, who is a board game and card game designer who is also in the RPG space and one of our designers. And he got excited about doing something like this. I think it's really, really cool. I think it adds a really fun dynamic to like try to figure out a password with this mini game with cards that have numbers and numerical signs and things like that on it. I think it'll add something really special to your game. And then the other thing that I think is I'm in love with is we've hired John Baldisberger, who's a horror fiction writer. He's done a ton of stuff, and he did a couple of the Mork-Borg novels that have come out in the last few years. He is writing a novel for us called Containment Breach, which is a prequel to our campaign storyline. So as a GM or as a player, if you want to like have a lead up to the events in Fragmentation, you can read Containment Breach and get an idea for what happened in the hours before your adventure starts.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm just trying to figure out which tier I can afford to back at.
That's fair. That's fair. It's too much, arguably.
Well, look, it's a concept that I want it. That is where I'm at.
Sure,
It's just a
sure.
matter of like trying to figure out because I've been really good. Like I went kind of crazy on Kickstarter for a while. Like not
Yeah.
compared to some people, but I backed a decent amount of stuff and then I kind of like backed off and I'm actually down to where I think I'm only waiting on one. Everything else that I've backed is
Wow.
fulfilled.
Good
Um,
for you. Yeah.
but
Yes.
like then again, a lot of that stuff I haven't cracked open yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so it's like I've been trying to let go. No, no, Steve. You need to play the games you have before you buy more.
Fool's errand. Ah,
It is. Look, I mean, let's
yeah.
be honest. those of us who are deep into this hobby, we're as much collectors, and we buy stuff because we want to play it and want to run it, and don't recognize the lack of time that we have because we also do a real job or have
Sure.
family and not quote unquote normal life to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. I think though, like, I agree with all that. I'm in the same boat across the board. I think it's definitely that collector mentality. It's also that mentality, at least for me, of like, I'm not probably not gonna buy an RPG if I'm confident I will never run this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that maybe that sneak in that way, but a lot of times it's like, I would like to run this.
Mm-hmm.
It's inspiring to me, so I'm gonna pick it up. And the reality is, I get through, half dozen systems a year typically that I'll run and navigate. So I'm always gonna get further and further behind. But I know me, and I know my groups, and I know that like it's not gonna work for me to say, "Oh, we just finished up Pirate Borg. Let's, you know what? The game that I have picked out that we're going to run and that I'm inspired to run at this moment and that you're inspired to play at this moment is Coriolis." Uh, that's never how it works. You always
Mm-hmm.
have to have options because from month to month, season to season, I'm going to be inspired by different things that are on my shelf,
Mm-hmm.
and my players are going to be excited about different things. And so I like having the options, and I love being able to say, here's 6 things that I'm excited to run right now. What of those 6 things do you guys want to play?
Mm-hmm. And hope you don't get 6 answers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Or no answers, which is even worse,
Right?
right? Yeah,
They
yeah,
look at you with that, what did you just say? I don't recognize any of those names.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. Like a lot, the game that's kind of at the front of my want to do something with list at the moment is I don't know if you heard of Slay Industries.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I know they did a Borg version not too long ago,
Mm,
but that
mhm,
world is so cool and
mm.
unique and wonderfully grimy and slimy.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel that.
But that one, like I've run that a couple of times where, literally I'm the only person, like I run it at conventions or whatever, and me as the GM is the only person who's heard of it before.
Yeah, yeah,
Or maybe
yeah.
one person heard of the first edition years and years ago. And so that, especially with a game like that, it's even more of a challenge because that world and the setting is so kind of unique. You have a half hour to 45-minute preamble before you get into the now 3.5 hour time you have to play the game. And then you've got to teach the system.
Mhm. Mhm. Let's see, I played in Fading Suns at a show recently, which is definitely one that I had never purchased, never didn't know anything about, but I knew the GM and I was like, if he's excited about this, I'm gonna dive in. And it's like Dune mixed with Call of Cthulhu. Dune
Hmm.
meets Eldritch Horror. And it's very cool. It's very crunchy system made by ex White Wolf people broke off and did their own thing. But like, yeah, I love anytime a GM, like you just described, is like in love with this like niche thing, this niche system, and it's like their baby, even if it's not theirs, right? But they've fallen in love. That's the game that I want to play every single time
Hmm.
because I'm counting on the fact that your enthusiasm is going to be infectious and then I'm gonna walk away, which is exactly what happened with that one. I'm gonna walk away and be like, okay, how do I buy this book? Like, what?
Hmm.
This is a completely new experience that I've never had before. It's not just like, you know, D&D, but on Mars or whatever. Like, it's something
Right.
funky.
Well, and I think I'm getting the same vibe from you, and some of how you talked about some of your goals with how you're creating the book. That this is very much for you a come share my fun project. Like this is a game that, quite frankly, if you're honest with yourself, you would have spent hours and hours making all this cool stuff to play with your friends, but because we live in the age we do, you can now theoretically think you're going to make some money on it.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Um, I,
But Brian Colin, who you mentioned from Vasgrim,
mhm,
very much the same way. And I say it all the time on the podcast, but that's the thing I love about these small indie creators is it's very much a won't you come share my fun attitude.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to make the biggest, brightest, polished, best-selling thing. It's about this is really cool. Won't you come enjoy it?
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. One of the games that's sitting on my shelf right now is Lycoma, which is like this little box set that came out a few years ago on Kickstarter, and it is a meat punk RPG, like Cronenberg style.
Hmm.
And I'm like, man, the fact like you as soon as I hit that Kickstarter page, I'm like, these guys are great. These people are great. And they're doing something that they super care about. And I gotta I gotta I mean, it was like instant fall in love with it. And I still haven't got to play it because that takes a special type of group to pull out a meat punk um
Hmm.
body horror RPG. But, it's like that's the thing that inspires me and that's the thing that gets me excited is when I see somebody else's enthusiasm and their expertise for something kind of flowing through a project from start to finish.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you've got now just the one thing I'm not seeing, and maybe I just haven't looked in the right place because I had to work today, so I didn't really
Sure.
read the whole Kickstarter page. What sort of fulfillment timeline are you shooting at? Obviously
Yeah,
it's a Kickstarter, but that
yeah.
means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yeah, so I think we've done a lot of work to show that it's going to get delivered pretty quick. We have a quick starter out that is 44 pages or something like that. And the book is only like I think the core book is going to be 144, so like there's a huge chunk of it done right there. The entire core book is written. Most of the fragmentation book is written. We're in layout on the core book. Editing's been done. All the set pieces have been written. So like there's a ton of stuff that's done here. We expect hopefully Lord willing and the creek don't rise, to be delivering digitally by the end of the year. And
Mhm.
if that happens, then I think we're talking like hopefully Q2-ish next year for digital fulfillment or
You
physical
mean physical?
fulfillment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just like to ask that because it's one of those things where and look, you know, life happens and like what is it? Kevin Crawford puts that disclaimer in his Kickstarters that like, look, if something happens to me, my family isn't going to be able to make anything out of my hard drive. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah. Yeah. And we live in a world, right? So
right?
who knows? But I think like from a perspective of risk assessment, I would say that partnering with Brian, both of us have a really strong track record. Like I said, I've managed about 70 Kickstarters. I think I have a 96% funding rate and like a 95% across even the ones that I've managed fulfillment rate. Like I make projects and I deliver them, and Brian does the
Mhm.
same. And you can go back and look at all the stuff we've made. And I know you know that, but just as a note, like we try to put our best foot forward and showcase that like there is always the possibility that something goes haywire, but it's very unlikely in this particular case. And I
No.
think we've done enough of the pre-work up front to where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel of this
Mhm.
project already. So.
It's just your stretch goals have exploded to massive levels.
Yeah, we've done a lot of stretch goals. I think most of those stretch goals, which is nice, most of them are about enhancing the book, not necessarily writing a bunch more pages. There's a few pages added, but a lot of them are like, hey, let's make the cover nicer. Let's emboss it. Let's add a Pantone color. Let's add two book ribbons. Let's do these things that don't take any more of my time, really. They just take more of my money. But, but, like I don't, it's not going to take me another 6 weeks to get another book ribbon added onto that. So,
Right. Can I ask a question to like
sure.
kind of to go behind the curtain a little bit here? When you're setting up this Kickstarter and you like you said you set a goal of roughly 144 pages for the core book, do you have material that is well, if we have to only go to 144 pages, then it's not going to go there, but hey, we'll add this as a stretch goal because we would like to do it, but we don't know if we can at normal levels. Is that part of your process, or is that just something an outsider might think someone would do?
Um, no, it sometimes happens. I mean, I think the truth is everybody knows that sometimes Kickstarter stretch goals are a fabrication, right?
Mhm.
Like when I put, like as an example, we put a stretch goal on there for $12,000. That's a spot gloss cover, right? Like I knew based off the number of followers that we had that we were going to make $12,000 on this project.
Hmm.
And B, I'm always going to do spot gloss on that cover at least, right? Like, so is it a real stretch goal? Sure, but like, there's not a world where we don't hit it, right? I knew that going before we even started. So there's definitely times when that's the case. I would say in this one, there's a few things in here that are actual like expansions for the like we're having there's a section that expands our company write-ups, and
Hmm.
there's another one that does company motivations. There's another one that adds more raptors. Those are real. Those are not written. Those are things that like our core book is quote unquote done right now. In many ways, it's in layout. So we're not when we think about things that we can do to expand the book. It's like what would be cool that didn't make the cut for the book as it is, but that we would love to have back in there, and that aren't going to mess up our layout, and that aren't going to mess up our timeline. And if all of those things line up, then we can add it in. And so most of the time that's going to be like, oh, we have a spread right now on our companies. It would be cool. We have two companies in the core book. It'd be cool if we could have a spread for both of them, and that it doesn't really hurt us from a layout perspective or anything like that. And it doesn't, it's another 1,000 words that somebody needs to write, but that's not a big ask. And one of our designers can do that really easily in a week or two. So like, it's gonna be that works with it. What you're not gonna see, and the thing that really makes me nervous when I see in a project is like, hey, we've got a stretch goal at $50,000. We're going to add a whole other adventure to the back of this book that's 30 pages. I'm like, well, either you've already written it, which great, cool, that's great. I'm not worried about it at that point. Or you're just so excited about getting to that point that you're willing to take on a bunch more stuff. And me as a backer, I say, I would rather you hit your deadlines and make the money that you need to make and not do those 30 pages than overcommit and regret it later.
Hmm.
So we try to make stretch goals that are still exciting, but that are within the means of us and our timelines and our capabilities very carefully.
Okay. And I see, like, you've got pledge levels all the way from just the basic digital core is like $20,
Hmm.
all up into, let me scroll down some more here.
Sure.
Like if you go all crazy, everything with all the. Now, are those physical minis for that level, or are those just the STL files on like the
Uh,
early
th-
bird spared no expense? Which I don't know if
with
the
minis,
early bird will still be available by the time this airs, but
sure. So the spared no expense tier with minis, those are actual minis. Those are
okay.
resin print minis. They're not they're super high quality. Got one right here on my desk with me. It paints up really nice.
Oh, and that's like
And
big. That's the T-Rex
yeah,
is
that's
what
a
about 8
T-Rex.
inches tall?
Yeah, I think right at a little over 7, so yeah, about 8 inches. And then the Spinosaurus is 11 inches long, just as a note. Like they're crazy big. And that was by design. If you compare this to like the Whiz Kids T-Rex, which I've got down on the floor, we're twice the size. Because in my mind, I'm like, if you're paying for a mini and you're gonna have it shipped with your Kickstarter, and you're excited about this, like these should feel like beautiful set piece eye-catching things, and not be like we shouldn't be worried about how much resin are we putting into this. So yeah, it's huge. There's actually a scale on the Kickstarter page. I think it's in there's a graphic that says accessories, but it'll show like a mini, like a regular 28 millimeter mini standing next to these
Oh,
things,
yeah,
so
I
you can
see
get
it,
a
yeah.
sense of how big they end up being. So you can you
Yeah.
can fit our minis in their mouths. Yeah.
But, yeah, so, like, you've got tiers all the way from basically $20 to almost 300 depending on what all you want, which I think is cool. I see you're shipping anywhere just because I know it's hit people hard in the industry. Have you I mean, do you have, like, a US printing source so you don't have to deal with all the circus that
Great
is the
question.
tariff stuff?
Yeah, great question. No, but I would say that like so here behind the scenes, right? So we talked a little bit behind the scenes for stretch goals. So behind the scenes here, if I want to make the Raptor Ruckus core book here in the States, and I've done some pricing out on this for different projects over the past, my guess is that for everything that we want to do with it, it would cost me approximately $16 a book to make.
Mhm,
Yeah, I mean, even at the quantities we're talking, like $16 probably is about what I would be paying.
mhm,
If I want all the bells and whistles on this book and I go overseas, and by overseas that could mean Europe, That could mean China. I mean, there's a lot of great factories, and we have our eyes on a couple of them that we've used in the past. But if I go over there, that same book at the same level of quality or better than what you would get in the United States is going to cost me $4 to $5 at most. And so even if let's say right now books don't get a tariff, they're tariff exempt. Some of our other stuff isn't, but let's say that a book gets that tariff. And let's say that that tariff is brutal. Let's say it's 100% tariff. That still means that I'm paying $10 for a book as opposed to 16 here in the States. So
Hmm.
the truth of it is certain things like zines we could definitely do here in the States, and we very well may, depending on the units that we need to order. But other things like hardcover books and GM screens, not feasible in the States. We'd lose most of our profit that way. So we go elsewhere. But I'll say, like, I think especially on some of the like the Kickstarter exclusive zines that we're pitching out there and some of the other things, I think even Brian has a new print shop that he's running. And I think we're going to use him for some of our stuff that way.
Hmm.
So it'll be a mix of domestic where it makes sense and then international where
Yeah,
it just
and like
doesn't.
this is a side that, like I said, I know it has hit elements of the gaming industry very hard. There's horror stories about these people that have containers of games now sitting there that they can't afford to bring over.
Yeah. I there's definitely that. And it's definitely like we're dealing with that with Pirate Borg right now, right? Like if your audience is familiar, Pirate Borg, we did last year a big Kickstarter called Down Among the Dead, and it has all sorts of stuff. It has books, but we did a bunch of dice sets, did a GM screen, we did neoprene mats, all this stuff. And a huge chunk of it is being made in China, or in Europe. And yeah, like there was a point in time in the middle of production where the tariffs in China were like 166% or whatever, right? And you're like, we're in trouble if that stays. And that's a case where you park it in a warehouse in China and you hope that tariffs go down, right? Luckily, things have smoothed out a little bit there to where we're not really worried about 166% anymore. But you never know. And that was definitely a reality for other people that had to make that choice. And I think as an industry, the only thing that we can do as a community is be really considerate of the situation publishers are in at the moment. And, as a backer, I'm saying like I'm anything that I back right now, you know, I'm not worried about when I get it. I'm not worried about, really even what the shipping ends up costing. I just want you to have money to make cool things and to I'll get it when I get it sort of attitude.
Well, yeah, and see, I think that's the thing too. Is like to me, it seems like this whole whatever is really hitting the small passion projects worse than anyone else because I would imagine, not to speak for anybody out there, but these small passion projects are probably run on much tighter margins than something that is funded by a larger company, conglomerate, whatever you want to call it. But like you said, there you're talking literally it costs you a third to have the book printed elsewhere as to what it would here. And if you pay that money, that's your cost for the book. That doesn't cover that. And that's got to
Yeah.
get translated up through, any distributor you send it to then go to the store where I buy it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, there's a lot of the pie that is a Kickstarter reward tier gets sliced into many, many slices before it filters down to the creatives. But, that's okay. Like we know that when we get into it. And it's our project. So the reality is the prices that we set, we understand that like, hey, at certain like there's a truth to the matter of like there's a right now we're making almost no money on this project, which is perfectly fine by us. We still get to see the thing exist. It's funded and we get to see it exist. But we're not worried so much about that part of it as much as can we deliver on this? Can we make it awesome? And then also trusting that we're going to build something that has legs and that is in here for the long haul. So I don't have to make a ton of money on this Kickstarter. I just need to get the thing out there, get it in people's hands, get people falling in love with it, hopefully, and then over time, I'll eventually make the money that we all hope once it's in your game stores and online and all those places.
Right. Well, and like, look, I'm just going to say this from my experience talking to other creators. And I mean, you and I just met this evening, so I don't know
Sure.
you per se, but most of the game design people I've met, They want to make enough money at it that they can do it and make a living. They are
Sure.
not by any means doing it as a I want to make a lot of money. It is
Yeah.
a thing. I am doing something I love, and if I can pay my bills, that's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it is. It's that's not to say that people don't make like you can make money in this industry, but for the same skill sets that you're developing in this industry, you could be making more money elsewhere. Say it that way, right?
Right.
So it's always a labor of love, even if it's your career, even if you have a comfortable living with it, it's still a labor of love because you could take that same skill set and make twice as much someplace else.
Mhm.
But, I mean, I don't know of a place where I can just decide, one day that I wanna make a Jurassic Park game and then spend the next year noodling with it, and then spend another year with some of my best friends and favorite designers crafting something and put it out, and then people buy it, and then I get to pay rent the next month with that, right? Like, that's that's a wild scenario that, freedom and creativity that you're not gonna find basically anywhere else.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. All right, so if anyone, I mean, obviously, we'll put the links for the Kickstarter, and you've sent me some other links, like the link for the quick start and all that. Those will all be down in the description or in the show notes or whatever you wanna call those text bits that most of us don't bother to look at.
Yep.
But, do you have, like, a website people can go to or, like, socials you want them to follow you on or anything like that?
Yeah, so I guess a couple things. If you go to you can click the link right now. Our website link goes right to the Kickstarter. So if you punch in raptorruckus.com, you're gonna go to the Kickstarter. Eventually, we'll have a home over on the Creature Curation website as part of that. But right now, I'd say go to the Kickstarter, or we have a Facebook group called Raptor Ruckus that you can join. And then if you want to know more about what I make in general, I have a website called zacgoins.com, and that has links to, I don't know, stuff like the Shadow Dark stuff I make or the Pyroborg stuff I make, things like that, if you're curious.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, I think with all that, unless you have anything else you want to say.
I do have one last thing for you, actually.
Ah.
The beginning of this episode, you said that this is kind of a fun, special thing because you had started a Jurassic Park actual play and then it kind of
Mhm.
fell apart. Tell me about what was that built around? Like, was that a system, an existing system, or was that something you were tinkering with, or what was the story there?
Well, so in me tumbling around the internet, I found a fan created Jurassic Park RPG book using a modified version of WEG D6.
Yeah. All right.
And it was it was good. I actually tracked down the individual who wrote it, and how do I wanna say this? By his own admission, he was not an experienced RPG person, and also because it was very much in no way attempting to file numbers off, it was strictly a passion project, and he kind of lost traction on it, and, like, it wasn't finished to where you or I would consider it a finished book,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was stuff I was gonna have to do, and I was fine with that. But then when the
Mm.
scheduling and stuff fell apart, it was kinda like, "Well, maybe I'll mess around with something for, Genesis or Savage World if I ever go to revive this." Well, now
Mm.
you've come along, and I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And I have another really cool idea that's been kicking around my head that I wanna talk to you about later.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, WEG D6 would be a great other option for this. Like, definitely one that you kick around. I think, the new Planet of the Apes game just came out, which is also WEG D6. And it's very cool to see that system getting like a little bit of a revitalization. And I'm just hoping that what we see is a continuation of that and more systems coming out with it because I think that is a system that has proven stood the test of time and proven itself as a quality thing and not a dated thing even
Mhm.
still. So it'd be great if we could see it kind of get further light in the modern era.
Well, I know they did I can't think of his last name. His first name's Alan, was I think one of the main designers behind the backers just got the PDF for the second edition release that they kickstarted a while back. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I want to say it's Gallant Knight Games, or no?
Alan Barr.
Yes, yeah. Tiny D6 or not?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
him. I had him on a while ago, and we didn't talk about that much, but I know they second edition, and like you said, the Planet of the Apes game, and it's not the most robust system, but it does the things you need it to do. I actually had fun and ran a Lord of the Rings themed Men in Black game with I found scans of the old Men in Black game that they released in that, and I put
Awesome.
Tolkien in the Men in Black universe in one easy step.
Tell me about what's your easy step to getting Tolkien
Okay.
into that? Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien, during World War II, actually worked for the British military as a code breaker. Tiny step from World War II code breaker to signals intelligence. Lord of the Rings is not a work of fiction. It is a dramatic retelling of intercepted alien signals. And we're in the Men in Black universe.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. That's wild. Okay, you've got me. Now you got me. I've got the box set for that Men in Black RPG on my shelf, and I've not read through it. Now you got me like, all right, I'm gonna have to crack that open and see what inspired you to this madness.
And so the conceit of the adventure was that you remember the aliens in the original Men in Black that like lived in the heads, the little tiny men. Well, that's what the Hobbiton set in New Zealand actually is. That's where the Men in Black are hiding all those aliens.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just took that and kind of ran from that, and like it's Men in Black, so it's supposed to be over the top and zany and weird.
Wow, that's crazy. I love that. That's awesome.
So yeah. All right. So well, shall we do game of the week?
Sure.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
All right. Would you like me to go first, or would you like to?
Go first. I want to hear it.
All right. So I've found one this week. It's a little. Now this is on drive-through. It's a game called Arcane Hold'em. Now I will say right off the bat, for anyone who's about this, they do say they did use some AI art that they then edited for the card backs or the card faces or something in this game. But this game is called Arcane Hold'em. They list it as a chaotic fusion of poker and tabletop RPG combat. The Emperor has gone mad and opened portals in every nightmare imaginable. Mindless robots from the future, feral aliens from the stars, man-sized dinosaurs from prehistory, and so on. And the way this works is you basically draw cards to create a poker hand, and then the suit of the card determines the race of your little party in your hand, and the rank of the card determines the level. And so it's kind of like a card combat game, I think, but it's poker meets RPGs, and it's $2.99 for the PDF.
Wow, that's weird. That's weird in all the right ways. That's crazy.
Right. Like I think that's the thing about it. Like for $3, and the way it sounds, you could play it with a regular old deck of cards. So
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. That's cool. All right. I like that. That's a good find. Anything that's got a weird new mechanic, I'm interested in checking out.
Well, that's half the fun of this is the thing. Like at least for me, it's always a little bit of a game of what can I find that someone else who I'm doing this show with is going to find interesting.
Yeah.
Which
Cool.
admittedly is a little easier for me than it is for you.
That's all right. Yeah. Well, is you ready for me to go?
Sure.
I'm gonna give you, and I'll also drop a link for you to look at this while I'm talking about it. I'm gonna give you Lies by Omission. Lies by Omission is an upcoming game. Yes, I'm gonna ask you to spend more money. Lies by Omission is an upcoming game by Nick Ribera, who is the owner of Chain Assembly. Nick does strange RPGs, one-off RPGs, indie RPGs in general. He's a graphic designer of immense talent and a writer of immense talent. He specializes in like pocket RPGs that are card based that you can pull out and like the entire thing is self-contained in a deck of cards. It has all the rules. It tells you how to play, and you play through a scenario as a group or whatever. And it's an evening experience, that sort of a thing. But
Mm-hmm.
he sometimes branches out, and like he did a Mork-Borg campaign book called Pilgrimage of the Penitent. Excellent and gorgeous. He also does a lot of tarot decks and oracle decks. And Lies by Omission is a tabletop game inspired by Gothic Italian horror film, and it is incredible. It is a murder mystery style of game, or at least it's not always maybe going to be a murder, but it's always a mystery where you play as everyday people going to different locales. The campaign book that he's written, which I adore and that he sent me an early copy of because he's the best, is set on an island off the coast of Italy. And it's set in the 70s, and he says like it's a melting pot of Catholic repression, communist revolt, fascist surveillance, satanic rituals, and feminist horror. Um, it's weird and beautiful. It uses a tarot deck for all the resolution mechanics and all of your stuff. You still have a character sheet, so you're not going to be completely at a loss. And the character sheet has stats, and it has equipment, and it has all sorts of little tag words for your character. You're gonna feel right at home with the character sheet, and then you're gonna pull out a tarot deck, and you're gonna be like, this is something funky. Anyhow, I think he's going live at the end of or in the middle of September. It's on GameFound. He's got a core book, he's got a player's guide, he's got a campaign book, he's got a tarot deck. It's amazing. I can't say enough about Nick and Lies by Omission. Easily, I think, going to be my game of the year.
I was going to
Right
say,
out
I'm
the gate.
looking at you sent me the link to the GameFound page, and like just the artwork has this very cool, it instantly reminds me of like the Connery era Bond films.
Yeah, yeah. Or Suspiria is for your listeners, right? That trying to visualize it. Like Suspiria, the movie's a very good one-to-one for the vibes that you're going to see here.
Hmm.
Yeah, he lists a chunk of them, like movies that you might know that are familiar, like the original Wicker Man in '73, Rosemary's Baby, The Omen of '76, Crimson Peak in 2015, The Ritual 2017. These are really good approximations for what he's going for here, in addition to like all of Italian horror cinema in the '70s
Oh,
and that era.
yeah. Well, I'm sure that's where, like, but that was just like what my brain went to is, and specifically, what was the one with like the voodoo tie-in?
Oh gosh, yes.
But you
Yeah,
get where I'm saying. Like, I see these books and
100%.
they fit right in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Live and let die.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a sucker for these like weird one-offs. I'm also a sucker for like I'm always in the hunt for like a game that does like mysteries really good and like that investigation aspect and like
Hmm.
how do you give I'm always curious like how do you do clues in your game? How do the investigators find clues? As the GM, what tool set am I supplied with to create clues or to create mysteries? Like those are interesting for me, and so it's really easy to get me hooked on or get me to pick up your mystery RPG. And yeah,
So on that note, because we tangent on this show all the time, because Steve and
beautiful.
I share an attention span, um,
Sure.
have you played any Gumshoe?
A little bit, but not a lot. And yeah, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Gumshoe's thing is that like it's less about will you or won't you find a clue. The clues are kind of a given, but it's in that like breadcrumb trail still feel and all that. Is that
Yeah,
a rough approximation? Yeah.
somewhat. Like your characters are assumed to be good at the thing you're doing, which in the context of Gumshoe games, they are investigators. And what they've done is basically if you have skill at X level, you find the clue. If you're willing to spend a point from your pool of that skill,
Yeah.
you could find out more information. Robin Wood Laws did a brilliant job, in my opinion, designing that system. My only real experience with it was playing Mutant City Blues, but
Mm,
it is a fascinating and to me a extremely well designed system. Someday I really need to crack open Ken Height's take on it. Oh my God, I'm the Jason Bourne Vampires one, Knights of Black Agents.
Nice Talk 8. Oh, it's great. It's awesome. Yeah. Another one that's really good. I mean, it probably familiar to your audience, but Blade Runner does investigation really good. I think like if you've ever played the starter set of the Blade Runner RPG, it's hands down one of the greatest starter set experiences you're ever going to have, especially if you're playing in person or with a build out on a VTT where it has all the stuff. Because the handouts, the visuals, everything that you're asked to do, like the handouts of this, like you'll go to the scene of the crime, it's like here's a handout of the crime scene, and like it's detailed enough that you're looking at it and it's not like obvious what you're supposed to be finding, but there are clues in that handout for you to pick up.
That's cool.
And it's super great. The downside of the Blade Runner RPG is that it it's so good and it doesn't give a great tool set for GMs to make their own investigations. So I think you're pretty much reliant on them putting out compelling scenarios for you to pick up and run. But I bet I've ran that starter set several times at this point, and it's great. So yeah, like hands down, a great mystery RPG is one of the best experiences you can have at the table.
Hmm. It really is. It's so much fun because I think part of it is everyone. Look, like there's a reason that cop dramas are such a big genre on television, and like I think like most of us have some little part of us that wants to be the super smart detective that finds things out, or at least wants to be there to watch it in person, even if we're the goofball guy that just gets coffee and trips over everything.
Well, and here's the thing, right? If you actually distill down those shows, it's not a lot of like, oh, I found clue X, clue Y, and clue Z, and then I found enough clues that I knew who did it, and blah blah blah, right? Like it's more about, I mean, a great example of this is the Hannibal TV show, which is my favorite show of all time, but like it's more about collecting enough clues that and this is true in general with I think as I understand it in real world investigations is like it's about getting enough clues to where you can paint an accurate picture of the type of person that would have committed this.
Hmm.
And then looking at the list of people that are tangentially connected to this case and say, does anybody fit that bill?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that the cool thing about like TV shows is that it's about like you pick up just enough clues to where you trigger the end game. It's not that you have every answer, you know exactly the person's, the murderer's name, their home address, their birth date, all the reasons why they did it, and their background as a child, but you know enough things to where the cosmos, the universe pushes you to an end game where the killer reveals themselves, or you stumble across them, or you remember that they were in the crowd at the crime like something happens to move us towards that final conclusion. And I think that a lot of times that's what bad mystery games or just mystery adventures miss is they think that you have to have a breadcrumb trail of very specific clues that very specifically lead you to a very specific person. And it's this linear path of, A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z done. When in reality and in the best storytelling, it's never that way.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. All right, well, I think let's kind of start wrapping this up here a bit.
Sure.
Zach, thanks so much for coming on to talk about Raptor Ruckus. Looks really really awesome. Like I said, I just got to figure out how much money I can afford to spend on it.
Thank you. Yeah.
um,
Sure.
um, but yeah, check that out. The Kickstarter, like I said, there'll be links. There'll be links to the quick start. Believe you sent me a link to the Facebook group, so I'll put that in the show notes as well. It just looks like the game I've kind of, or a game that I've kind of always wanted, but didn't necessarily know I wanted it until, oh my God, there it is.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, so thank you for putting the work in to bring it to reality, and people go check the stuff out. The links he's mentioned stuff in the show. We'll try to put everything so you can reference that if you want to. With all that, as far as us for the show, I mean, all our links are down in the information. You can come find us on our Discord channel and talk about stuff, ask questions. We have a Patreon and all that stuff. There's email if you just want to email me things and ask me, Steve, that was stupid. Why did you say that? I don't know. It made sense at the time. A lot of my life works that way. But anyway, But all that being said, again, Zach, thank you so much for coming to talk about this awesome game. And I think with that, we just want to remind everyone to be kind to each other and get out there and play some RPGs.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.